Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Welcome, Sam Norris, to the Focus on Why podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Amy. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
Oh, it's so excited to be able to return the favour because you very kindly had me on your podcast, The Game of Loans, which is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Very kind.
Yeah, I love that podcast. I love the way that you present and the way that you just really make your guests feel so welcome. And it's just like a great chat show that you just feel, it's like a radio station that you just feel like you're listening to. It's brilliant.
I feel bad having asking people to come onto my podcast because I feel like I get a lot more out of it than they do because I just enjoy it so much. I love chatting to people. So for me, it's just an extension of my everyday life. Just we record it and let, thousands of people listen to it.
Well, and why not? Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me what it is you're currently doing now, Sam.
So very exciting. We recently, I'm a mortgage broker for some people that don't know. And me and my business partner have just opened the doors on our very own brokerage, Grand Union Finance. This has been sort of 5 years in the making. So we met 5 years ago. I knew he was going to be a really good friend of mine because the first thing he said to me was really, really horrible. It just took the mickey out of my horrible hair. And I was like, yes, you're going to be my friend for a long, long time. And so it's just really exciting that we finally get to put into practice 5 years worth of planning, basically. So yeah, really, really excited about that. And finally starting to let people know about it, which is even more exciting, really.
So I feel like there's going to be a certain number of people that A, might have switched off because they heard that you're a mortgage broker and they're like, oh, I don't want to listen to this. And then B, they now know that they need to say something about your hair to be your friend. So Sam, your hair looks terrible. I want to be your friend for life.
Absolutely. I haven't been able to go to a barber for quite some time.
I'm kidding. So tell me, why Grand Union Finance? Where did that name come from?
I met a girl. Every good story I find starts with I was in the pub or I met a girl. So I met a girl and she was from the West Midlands. She was from a place called Bromsgrove, which is kind of halfway between Worcester and Birmingham. And I'm a North London boy, as you might be able to just about hear in my voice. And we originally made the decision that we would live in London, and she came down. She lived with me. Fast forward a few years, she made the awful decision to get married to me, and we were living a happy life. But we did realise that we were pretty much spending half our time in London and half our time in the West Midlands, and it's a lot cheaper and actually a little bit less chaotic to live in the West Midlands. So we decided to make the switch. Now, where we live right now is we live on the Grand Union Canal. And it is not, so for me, it's not just an imagery in terms of connecting me to where I grew up, where I live. It connects me to my business partner who's still down in London. And we like to think that he and I make a bit of a grand union when we're together. So that's kind of where it came from. And we went through a lot of names to come up with that. And we're really pleased with it, actually, because it makes a lot of sense to us.
That's brilliant. And I love the story behind the name there. So
yeah.
How long have you been a broker?
So I got qualified 13 years ago, back in, what would that be, 2007, which was a pretty awful time to get qualified as a broker. So bearing in mind the timing of that. So I literally kind of completely by accident got offered an interview going to work at a company called Alexander Hall, which is the brokerage associated to Foxtons, the estate agents in London. And it was quite funny, actually, because I went all the way down to Chiswick, which is where the head office is, thinking that I was going for a trainee stockbroker job. So a bit of advice for everyone out there: figure out what you're going for before you actually get there. Then I also realised it was a group interview, made it even worse for me. So there was me and 11 other people, all of which seemed to be managers and senior managers and all this kind of stuff that were looking for like career changes. I was pretty much straight out of uni and didn't know my certain part of my body from my elbow. And I was the only person to get the job out of all of them. And I'm still not 100% certain why. But yeah, I got the job as a trainee. And the idea was I worked at Foxtons in their head office whilst I did my qualifications. And then I would be shipped over to the broker side and start helping clients, which is what we all wanted to do. Fantastic property education at Foxtons. They get a bit of a bad rep, but the education that they give to their staff is second to none. Definitely can't fault them there. But it slowly became very, very obvious that people weren't being shifted across even when they reached their full qualification because of what was going on in the market. There just wasn't the room for more brokers because there wasn't enough leads coming in because of the market conditions. So I made some might say, ballsy kind of move to just quit my job. So that I could spend a couple of months finishing off my qualification and basically making that my full-time job. Once I did that, I went into an estate agent in Barnet, in North London, where I grew up, and just said, "Hi, do you need a mortgage broker?" They said, "We don't, but we have an IFA in our basement. Do you want to go and speak to them?" So I walked downstairs, asked them what they did. They said, "We do mortgages, pensions, and investments." I said, "Which one of those two do you want to do more of?" They said, "Pensions and investments." I said, "Great, give me that desk over there. I'll give you 50% of anything I earn and I'll do all your mortgages for you." And I started work about 2 days later, and I did that for a few years. So I literally, like I said, very ballsy, and just went for it. And I wouldn't say I failed miserably by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a really, really hard few years. No basic salary, not knowing where the next penny's coming from. Having certain times going door to door, knocking on people's doors, giving them leaflets. "I'm your new local mortgage broker. If you need any help, ring me." And it was actually doing that that got me my first ever client. And I sort of went from there really. And it's been a rocky roller coaster of a ride ever since.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that group interview, I tell you. Oh my goodness. To suddenly sort of probably have that flush of where you realised it wasn't the job that you were going for and
Yeah.
realising that, oh my gosh, what am I doing in this room? That would have been brilliant. But,
Well, I said because I said I didn't know why I got it. There's part of me that is thinking maybe I do. I sat there and I was really honest. I came completely clean with them. And I think actually they were more annoyed that probably the recruitment consultant didn't brief me well enough as to what I was coming for. But I turned around to them and I said, "Well, look, we've got a half an hour or whatever. Just could you tell me in 10 minutes what the job entails? And I can tell you straight away whether it's worth me continuing with the interview or not." And they said, "Yeah, okay, cool." So they told me. I said, "Great." And I had about 3 or 4 questions for them about it. And I said, "Okay, cool." I said, "I think I could do this job and I think I'd be really good at it. And I think I'd really enjoy it." So I said, "Over to you. Now it's your turn to decide whether you want me or not." And for 15 minutes, they asked me a few other questions. I was really open and honest. I had absolutely no experience. I'd never managed a team. I'd never worked face to face with clients before. None of this. But I said, "Look, I feel as though I'm an intelligent guy. I'm really, really hardworking. If you want to give me a shot, give me a shot. If you don't, I'll understand." And they gave me a shot. And they didn't give any of the other 11 that were there a shot. So maybe something I did resonated with them.
well, I think honesty always trumps everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So going back, what had you done at university beforehand?
So, well, I always say nothing to do with broking. I did a history degree, but I think when you think about what you do and what you study at university, I mean, my wife didn't go to university, and it's great that we have the perspective of both. So, as and when maybe we start a family, we've got 2 different stories to tell our kids one day, and they can make a decision because she's incredibly successful and didn't need it. For me, I went off and got a lot of life skills, and I studied history, as I said, but very academic subject, teaches you a lot of life skills, really important life skills, and a lot of which I now use in my day-to-day role as a broker. Being able to analyze things. I have to read through offers and things like that every single day. Being able to get the information out of those bits of text really quickly, and also just the being able to research properly, and think clearly. those things I really pulled out of that degree. A lot of people have said to me since, God, history, wasn't that just a complete waste of time? Not at all. I really, really learned how to collect my thoughts, and be a bit analytical and be able to research properly, which are all really, really important skills that you need as a broker, or an advisor, really, in financial services completely, whether it's pensions, investments, property finance, or anything else.
I guess also you seem to be a real people person, and a lot of what you're doing is helping people shape their future and listen to what they want in life.
hmm Yeah, it is. There's the old phrase, isn't it? The two ears, one mouth. And when you're an advisor, that's really, really important. You have to use those two ears incredibly effectively to get as much information as you can from your client to really understand what they're doing. For me, I started out doing mortgages where I was helping first time buyers a lot of the time, and people that were moving home and that sort of stuff. And I've branched out since, especially over the last sort of 5 to 6 years, especially helping investors and developers. Now, when you're helping those types of clients, you really have to understand what their long term objectives are, and make relatively quick shifts in what you're talking to them about, to make sure that what you're telling them is really important to them and their journey. And that's where the one mouth comes into it. I do like chatting and talking to people, but I have to make sure that I'm being very succinct in what I'm telling them, so that actually the information is really, really important. And those, again, they're really good skills that you learn in many academic degrees, where reading is an important part of that. So it's not just the listening element, but in terms of reading, that kind of covers the listening element. And then the writing is the speaking element, where you're taking all of that information and then coming up with a solution for that. And the solution, from a historical, essay point of view, is your kind of thoughts and opinions on all the stuff that you've read about a particular problem.
And so you consider yourself a bit of an academic?
I definitely did. As I was telling you off air, I went back and, for my sins, I did a master's, and that really just came about because the market was poor. As I said to you before, I'd just done a property development with my dad, who's a builder. So we made a bit of money. So in terms of, basically, my year was kind of sorted income-wise. I didn't need to go back and earn any more money. So I actually stopped working for this IFA, and went back and did a master's full time. And I think that was the point when I thought to myself, Sam, you're never going to be a true academic, because I went from the seminar classrooms at university when I did my undergraduate, considering myself to probably be one of the more vocal in the room, one of the more confident, maybe, dare I say it, kind of more top of my class. When I did my history degree, by the way, I was really, really annoyed, because they give a special prize out every year in the history department at the University of Essex, where I went, for the top dissertation. And I think the average score to win that award is 81 out of 100, which is incredibly high. And there was a girl there called Steph, who I'm not in contact with anymore, unfortunately, but she and I were kind of like study buddies. And whilst we were doing our dissertation, we chat a lot. And I got my dissertation back and I got 83. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to win that blooming award. Steph got 84. Highest ever recorded score for that. So I didn't win that particular award, which was annoying. But so I went from that sort of position into the world of the masters, and suddenly it was like everyone was speaking a different language. And I went to King's as well, which some might consider to maybe be a better institution than Essex University. So Essex was amazing, by the way, such an incredible university, great culture there. For me, I suddenly went from a room where I maybe sounded a bit more like the cleverer one, to the one where I was like, shut up, Sam, you're just going to make a fool of yourself. So I think I lost my academia sense there, unfortunately.
So how did you fill your time otherwise?
So I think I've got quite a few little pastimes I enjoy. I'm a massive rugby nut. So anytime I can go and watch my team Saracens play with my dad, that's like my favourite thing to do in the world. A couple of pints, watch the boys hopefully win, enjoy my time with my dad. It is like the ideal Saturday afternoon for me. But apart from that, back in the university days, we were talking about this, in terms of filling my time, I definitely felt like I didn't do enough outside of the academic side, and I also played for the rugby team when I was at university as well. So it's literally played rugby, did classes, drank beer. That was the three things I did when I did my undergraduate. So I wanted to branch out a little bit when I went back and did my master's. So I joined the university radio station, and this is where I think I got my love for audio and presenting and things like that, because I had a show and it was called Blabbermouth, which nobody could understand why I used that name, because I'm so, quiet and retiring. It was basically a sort of a comedy chat show, really. I loved being in that studio. I had two different producers over the course of the time that I was there that kind of helped me out and sort of sat in the background, and we just whatever was in the newspaper that day, we'd pick it up and we'd talk about it and try and be as funny as we possibly could. We also had various little skits that we did, and I did a few impressions. We had Shano, the Australian, that would come in every now and again. And basically the whole point of that was that we would say, "Hi, Shano, how have you been?" He'd tell us he was fine. And then before we had a chance to ask him any questions, he'd ask if he could do a shout out to all of his friends. And then we timed it, it was 4.5 minutes doing a shout out for all of his mates. So it was like Maiko, Benno, Jono, and everything had O after it. And they were like, "Okay, well, time's up. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Shano." And that would be it. And we also did a thing called The Blagger, which was effectively, we were told that if you tell different places, museums and attractions, things like that you're from the university radio station, they will let you come in for free. So we just tried to get into as many things as we could for free. And we did some cool stuff. We got I say one-to-one in terms of me and my producer and then somebody else, a one-to-one tour around the London Aquarium, which was amazing. We got a one-to-one tour around some of the private exhibits at the British Museum, which was also really, really cool. And my favourite one was that the head brewer at the Fuller's Brewery in Chiswick gave us a one-to-one tour around the brewery and then spent 3 hours with us in the basement where there is a secret bar, just getting us to try all of these beers that weren't even available to the public yet. And we had a seminar after that, so we had to be very quiet and sit at the back. But we did some really awesome stuff. But it did sort of grew my love for podcasting, which is obviously now what I'm doing as well in my spare time, which I actually love. And of course, I mentioned to you off air that we managed to win a National Student Radio Award as well, which was very, very special. Not that I know where it is anymore, but it's lodged in my mind, and I think I remember most of the night.
So are you going to sort of leverage your Game of Loans podcast host title to get some more blagging?
Good question. Probably, well, not. I don't have any plans to do so, but certainly you've just thrown a seed in there that might maybe sort of grow. I think one thing I definitely would love to do is use both my new title as a director of a company, which is quite important, I think, and the podcast and the other stuff that I do sort of marketing wise to grow the marketing side of the business. I'm a massive fan of sort of indirect marketing, so not just selling to people constantly, which you just get all the time and it's really boring. I love to I call it entucating. You're entertaining, but you're educating people. And I'd love to be able to use that to meet more and more exciting people and maybe visit more and more exciting or interesting places, like going to visit lenders and doing sort of a video tour and interviewing various people and doing stuff like that in the future, as and when maybe I build out a team with Grand Union that can look after some of the day-to-day stuff, so frees my time up to look into that in a bit more detail. But certainly something that me and my business partner have discussed a lot is being able to do this a little bit more, because yes, it's going to be great for people and hopefully it'll be really interesting for people to watch and see and listen to. But, there is also that little bit at the bottom, which is, this is what we do for a living. We're brokers. And so we're showing you our knowledge, our connections. Maybe we're the broker for you. But somebody said to me the other day, they said, "I actually trawled through a lot of your stuff and I can't find one thing that you come online with that said, I should be your broker, or come and use me, or special offer, or anything." I never do that. And I do it on purpose because it's pointless. I don't want to force anyone to use me that doesn't want to.
So where does a passion come for being a broker?
I think with my dad being a builder, property was always going to be in my blood in some way, shape or form. As I said, we've done developments in the past ourselves as well. decided that our relationship was probably better suited to in the pub and by the side of the rugby field than trying to do building work together. But yeah, there's always going to be that way. I think I did stumble into it completely by accident, as I mentioned. But that first job that I had with Foxtons, at the time I hated it because I was actually, believe it or not, I was in a room of probably 500 people, and it was just a massive sales team, and you were tasked with calling or making at least 250 calls a day to try and drum up business for Foxtons. Now, I was sworn at more times than I care to imagine during that time, but I also learned a lot about the property market, a lot about how you can make money in property, and I spoke to loads and loads and loads of really interesting and really cool people. And I did come out of that thinking it's that interaction with the human side of it. That's what I absolutely loved, and it's still what I love to this day. I think I could probably get into anything in a sort of a sales capacity that involved not just B2B, but B2C as well, kind of that interaction. And it's that what I like. It's just the fact that I think I've learned enough about brokering and lending and how that all works to be able to, service those clients and be able to have good conversations with them. But it is that interaction. And my wife is constantly telling me off because she says, you spend too much time on your phone calls to clients, hour and a quarter, just chatting about all sorts of stuff. But, I spent an hour and a quarter the other day on the phone to a client, never done any business before, never spoken to them before. Was talking to them all about the new business, talking to them all about, what my plans were, how passionate I was to try and create this incredible service, the likes of which our industry has never seen before. And she told me she was open. She goes, I'm basically interviewing you, Sam. I'm speaking to about 4 or 5 different brokers to see which one I want. And about an hour later, a notification popped up on my Instagram that she had tagged me in her story to say that she cancelled her other meetings, her other chats, because we just had such a great chat and that she just wanted to work with me. And although that she hadn't even done any business with me yet, she'd already recommend having a chat with me because I was able to share my knowledge. And I think just my passion for what I do and wanting to help her, obviously, well, I'd like to think shone through and it resonated with her somewhere. So, I mean, that for me was like one of my crowning achievements. I can't believe that someone tagged me in a story on Instagram because of talking about mortgage brokering. That doesn't happen. So, yeah, I felt pretty awesome about that. I'm not going to lie.
And was that one of those moments where you turned around to your wife and said, no?
I don't think she was around, unfortunately. No, but I did do one of those like mini fist pumps like you do to yourself, like, yes, that's what I did.
And the reason I reference that is because when I was on your podcast before, you say you're very rarely right. So to have a moment where you're right is a good moment, is a fist pump moment.
Yeah, and I'm okay with being wrong when it comes to Emily because she is, she is, we'll come on to this, I'm sure she is 100% my why. And I have all the respect and love for her in the world. And it's weird because I think when you have that admiration and that genuine care for someone else, you don't actually really care about being wrong. You're quite happy for them to be right. Even when you think they might be wrong, I'm happy for her to be right. So yeah, I don't tend to make too much of a big deal out of it, to be honest with you, even when, it's quite clear that I'm right sometimes.
So tell me a bit more about her.
She's awesome. She's a massive personality, which some people might think that sort of we would then clash, but actually we don't really. We kind of just play off each other. I think we're sort of known as the couple that if you want, to have some people round for a quiet evening in, we're probably not the people for you. But yeah, we completely bounce off each other, and yeah, I've just got so much respect for what she does, how she does it, and the fact that I thought the only way to get by in life was to go through the education system, do a degree, get a job, earn money, eventually set up your own business, or they're basically what I've done. But how she's gone about doing what she did, she realised very early doors when she was sort of starting to do A-levels and stuff that just wasn't for her. She went out and she did this really awesome thing that she did an apprenticeship at, I'm going to get this wrong, it's either TUI or Thomas Cook, and I can't remember which one it was. She's probably going to go nuts at me after this if she listens.
A travel company.
It was a travel company. Other travel companies are available. And she was like 17 or something. And I think by the time she was 19, she was the youngest office manager or branch manager in the whole company, whole company. and she was like consistently in terms of her sales figures was like in the top five. I was just like, that is just insane. And it just shows you don't need a university education to do that. She did that off her own back. She worked her ass off, pardon my French. And yeah, she's just phenomenal. And yeah, now she's just as great. She now edits a construction magazine, which is completely different, but she loves that and she's amazing at that as well. And she's one of those people as well that when you come into contact with her, you can't like dislike her. She's very sort of attractive in terms of physically, yes, definitely attractive, but in terms of her personality, very, very attractive person, and everyone seems to sort of want to be around her and stuff, which is obviously why I'm still here after 5 years.
So you said she was your why. How does that work for you doing what you're doing? How does that fit in?
Yeah, I think I don't think either of us come from bad backgrounds in terms of, both relatively kind of middle class-ish backgrounds. When I look back a little bit further, certainly my sort of grandparents and great grandparents were definitely working class, East London, sort of Jewish ghetto kind of family. But both of us really in the last, in terms of our parents, come from sort of middle class backgrounds. But so I kind of I've seen, her dad has always really looked after her. And, in terms of that he was like the male figure in her life that just, was very, very, I'm trying to think of the word, protective. And, she just has such admiration for him because he looked after her, and her mum, I love my mother-in-law to pieces, which is very, very rare apparently. But I'm very, very lucky. But I kind of want to almost sort of emulate that and fill that role and just really look after her. She's worked incredibly hard throughout her life, but I also know that probably her greatest ambition is to just be the best mum in the world. And although we don't have any kids yet, it's what we plan to do. And I just want to facilitate that for her. I want to be able to do what my parents have done for me and what her parents have done for her in terms of look after my family, be the breadwinner. And that's not, being old-fashioned or too traditional or anti-feminist or any of these other things. It's, we know that that's kind of the relationship that we want, and I want to facilitate that for her. And and my success is really driven by that. That's the aim, is that we want to be financially free, for want of a better phrase, and I want to be able to spend as much time as I possibly can, with my family and with Emily. And I don't want her to ever worry for anything. I don't want our kids to ever worry for anything. I just want them to have a really safe, secure life with me around. And that's what really drives me.
And why is it so important for you to create all of that?
I think it's a good question. And I'm sure I could probably think of loads of like cliched things to say. But the reality is I just absolutely adore her, and I just really want her to be able to be completely free to do whatever she wants to do. I know that I've found in business, in running a business, and being successful and creating sort of a wealth related success, that I have found a calling in my own life that I enjoy and I aspire and I'm driven towards. But the backing of all of that is that I know that Emily doesn't have that same kind of calling. Her calling is, as I said, to just be the best mum in the world. And I just want to facilitate that for her. I want her to, be able to not have to work, to look after the kids full time, to be able to choose if there's something that really is, really gets her juices going, not to have to worry about, is this a job that's going to pay me enough to pay the bills or whatever. It's something that she could just get her teeth into and be passionate about. And, for her to spend time with her mum, both her parents are retired, and for her to spend time with her friends and just, just lead the life that I know that she would just love. And I know her well enough to know that is, as much as she's been fantastic in work, she's very good at jobs. She's good at jobs, and not everyone is. But I know that her aspirations aren't in that field. They are in more the personal side of things. And yeah, I just want to be able to to give us both, I suppose, the life that we really want together, rather than me just being in a dingy office all day long and her, sitting at home with a child or whatever, not seeing me. So it's a little bit of both, I suppose.
And do you see this sort of vision that you have as being common with your peers?
No, I don't. I certainly think that, and this goes back to that whole thing where people say, oh, you're the average of sort of the five people that you hang around with. The vast majority of my life, in terms of my friends and even my family, to an extent, certainly wouldn't fall into the similar sort of category in terms of the aspirations I personally have on a business side and on the kind of the personal side of things as well. But I think because I have a genuine belief that I've come across something that I think could cause me to be successful in a financial way, that it facilitates opening my mind to the idea that actually this idyllic family dynamic that we could create is something that's possible. Um, Whereas maybe some people don't open their mind to the fact that those kinds of things are possible, and that's why they don't pursue it, because it's just not on the agenda. Both my parents are self-employed, so I think I always understood that if maybe if I took my own life in my hands, if you like, and did things for myself, that I would have that greater control. Doing just silly little things in my life, like the first time I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I just suddenly had this realization: hang on a second, I'm doing this entire life thing wrong. Um, and if I actually started thinking about life in the way that Robert Kiyosaki mentioned, or was educating people about, that actually this idea of wealth, not wealth for wealth's sake or success for success's sake, but the facilitator of a better existence, was absolutely within my grasp, and actually I think within anyone's grasp. It suddenly meant that the idea of this home life that 99% of other people don't even dream of was completely a reality. And I read that book 6 years ago. So in reality, it's taken me 6 years. And if I went back in time and had a chat with myself, I probably could have done it in far less time than I have. But it's taken me 6 years to really realize that first stage of what that book was teaching. And now, the plan for stage two, if you like, although me and my business partner are still calling it stage one, is to build that business, build an asset base of income generating assets, just like old Robbie Kiyosaki told us to do. So that again, the driver behind it all is that idyllic life, the freedom and the time for family life. So yeah, I don't think I consider myself lucky that I've had the realization that I have, that life can be different from what I would call the 99% of the population.
And can you remember how you found that book?
No, I can't. I'm trying to think. I think it was probably just one of those. It was. I remember reading it on my phone, so I downloaded it onto my phone to read, and I read it as I was going into, like, commuting into London every day. And I actually read it during a quite difficult time in my life, and where I was, I guess, subconsciously searching for a different way. Up until that point, how old would I have been then? 29. Up those first 29 years had gone okay, but ultimately it led me to a point where I was nothing again. I was back living with my parents. I had a really messy breakup with a long-term fiance, as it was at the time. Lost my flat I was living in, lost my car, lost my little dog, which was really horrible. And moved out of brokering for a very short period of time, got like a job in something completely different that I loved, lost that job because I was really crap at it. And just, there was a kind of a big weight in my life at that time, that everything that I was doing was just, it just wasn't working, and I needed a new way. And I happened across this book, and it just completely changed my life. I just suddenly thought, so hang on a sec, everything I've been doing for the last, well, let's not say 29 years, because I don't want to put too much pressure on sort of 5-year-old Sam. But certainly for the last 10, 11, I'd not been wasting my time, but I've been just following society's way of doing things, and And I actually thought, oh, hang on a second, I've been the poor dad. I've been moving towards poor dad's status this entire time. And I needed to realize that I needed to change to a rich dad mentality. Otherwise, I was destined to be poor dad forever. And I wasn't going to be fulfilled. And I was going to continue this cycle probably of just not being happy. And I actually think as well, at that time I was completely unopen to the idea of ever being in another relationship again. It just was something that was so off the radar that, in reading that book as well, because of the positivity it gave me and the direction it gave me and the focus it gave me. I'm certain that it also, it wasn't too long after that I actually came into contact with Emily for the first time. And I was completely then just open to this idea of just being in a relationship again. And the whole thing kind of just came together. And the last sort of 5 years that she and I have been together, it's going to be our second year wedding anniversary in September, so not too long away. That period of time has been where things have really stepped up a gear and moved towards the position that I'm now in, where, I'm not happy in my family life, but also happy in my, in my working life as well, which is great.
It's incredible how a book can really change a life. You're not the first person to reference this book either. I speak to a lot of people, and whilst it's dated in some respects, that some of the particular models don't necessarily work anymore, the principle is the same, which
Mm-hmm.
is to build assets to then pay for your liabilities instead of paying for liabilities out of employment. So the concept works beautifully, and yet it's not mainstream.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, actually. I was having this conversation with Emily really recently where she said, because I basically explained to her the plan of the fact that, we had this incredible ambition. We were going to build the best brokerage that has ever been. Our clients were going to absolutely love us. We've got all these, I mean, we are literally day by day at the moment coming, trying to put this plan and process in together. We're just so passionate about this. Our clients are just going to be blown away by the technology and what we're going to use to hopefully just make their lives just so much easier and make this whole, mortgage and bridging and development finance rubbish just seem like an absolute breeze, hopefully. But the larger term premise of this is very rich dad, poor dad. We are building a company. That company is going to buy assets. That's where the true wealth and the true freedom and and then the ability that Emily may not need to work or could work part time or do whatever she wanted would come from. And to do that, and I'm a massive believer in this, as a business owner, you need to kind of just really try and go against your better judgment to just take all the money that comes in. You can create £1 million business and take, if you're in a 50-50 relationship, take 500 grand, that's your salary. But no, that's not conducive to a really long-term plan. So, I've explained to her that we're going to be taking minimal income from this. And she couldn't get her head around it. And I was trying to explain this whole process of the money is not being taken out of this company because that company is going to go and buy stuff that's going to make even more money. And then you have that cycle that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And there's certainly a stage 2 and 3 to our bigger plan. Maybe I'll be back on the podcast in 10 years' time telling you about it. But in the short term, that's it. That's what we're trying to do. And so I was trying to explain to Emily why I couldn't be drawing hundreds of thousands of pounds from the company, even though she couldn't quite understand that concept. But I doubt if I gave her a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad that she'd actually read it, if I'm honest. But maybe I'll just I'm sure you can get like a summary of it. Maybe I'll get that for her or something like that. But
I think it's worth reading. Even my kids have read it. Well, it was under duress, I have to add there. We were driving down to France a couple of summers ago and it was put on the car audio and they were asked to listen to excerpts, not the whole thing, and I just asked to remove their own headphones.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. Oh, I'm going to do that. I've already decided when I'm a dad one day. There are books, because I don't want to get on my soapbox about it because we don't have time. But I really think that the education system in our country is antiquated at best. So I understand that as a parent, I will have a lot of responsibility to educate my children in the manner that I genuinely believe they should be, and that is on a financial level. So I've already got this vision in my head, 10, 15 years down the line, where I'm making my kids and saying, right, if you read this book, you'll get this, or when they say, Dad, I want these new trainers or whatever's going to be cool in 15 years time or whatever. What I want these, I'm like, okay, well, you can have them. Really? Yeah. Well, you got to read Rich Dad Poor Dad first. And I want you to you're going to have to write down what you learned from it, so that you can prove to me that you've read it. I know I'm going to be doing that. I'll definitely be giving them Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, all of these sorts of books. They're going to form the staple of their extracurricular activities, should we say?
Well, you're talking to the book queen here.
I know.
Everyone walks away with a list of books when they have a conversation with me, and I don't force it on them. I just drop them into conversation casually and just say, oh yeah, this book might be of use for you. I seem to have a book for every topic, but I just love them, and I'm surrounded by books. I always have been. Ironically, I was told as a 16-year-old that I should be a librarian as my career choice.
Do you know what? I'm sure you would be a fantastic librarian.
But I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm doing. I'm curating stories. It's just in a different format. It's a modern format.
Absolutely. No, one thing I really hope, and here's a little secret about me that not everyone knows, is I'm quite a big Doctor Who fan. And I've kind of lost a little bit of love for it recently, but I was certainly for a big time. And there was an episode where, far off in the future, David Tennant, when he was the Doctor, they went and visited a planet called the Library. And he said, one thing that the human beings never stop doing is reading books. And I really, really hope that is the case, because even now, I've got my audiobooks, I've got books on my phone, on my iPad, but there's nothing better than, especially like if you're on holiday, sitting by a pool, getting an actual book out. And I mean, I can go and walk around Waterstones or wherever, Foyles in central London for hours. I just love the actual books.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than actually from cover to cover getting through a book. And I really hope that never, ever, ever changes.
Oh, I'm so with you there. A physical book. So quite often what will happen is, because of timing, I will listen to a book on Audible, and if it's a good one, I have to go straight out and get it as a physical book, so that I can then sort of scribble through and make notes again, because getting through books on Audible is quite, I used to drive in the old days, when we used to travel around the country.
Yeah, I remember the old days. Yeah, back in the day when we used to actually go out of our homes.
So yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it, that how much of an impact one book can make, and especially when you're talking about the education system. And the education system serves a part, but as a parent, you also have a duty to fill in other areas. And I don't think that the education system should supply everything. I think it's not possible. It's not a one-stop shop for everything. And as a role as a parent, absolutely, financial literacy should be a part of that.
Yeah, I think the problem that we have, unfortunately, in this country is that a lot of parents aren't financially literate themselves. And that's where there's that disconnect, unfortunately. And I actually did and I can't remember if I mentioned this in our podcast episode that we did together, actually, I was watching a program a few months back called Rich Kids Get Skin. And good premise for a program. I actually find that Channel 5, get a bad reputation, Channel 5, but actually they've got some really good little programs on Channel 5. And me and Emily were watching it, and the premise of the show was, as we said, as I think mentioned before, was a rich youngster usually in their early 20s goes and lives with what would be considered a poor family for a weekend or longer than that, to see how they live their lives. In this particular episode, the kid was certainly rich. He had a 20 grand Rolex on his wrist and all this kind of stuff. And the family was a mum and dad and a small kid. The mum didn't work, she's a full-time parent. Dad had 2 jobs. And I think, and for me, what this showed was, the whole premise of the show was obviously to show the rich kid that the other side of the fence, and there's certainly loads and loads and loads of lessons to be learned, but they really missed a trick, because there was an opportunity there to also turn the tables and teach the poorer family maybe how they could remanage themselves in a different way so that they could not be as poor as traditionally poor. And I think there was something like, for example, I think it was like they had 40, no, £25 left over per month as a surplus after everything. And whilst this poor dad was going to do his Saturday job, second job, which was delivering leaflets around the town, he was walking around with a pint-sized can of Red Bull. I love Red Bull, so I know that that can is probably about £1.60. Now, most people just go £1.60, who cares? £1.60 is a percentage of £25. It's quite high. And just there's little tiny things like that, and I guess this is why I get very, very passionate about talking to my clients about their personal finances. I do videos online about how to manage your personal finances in a very Robert Kiyosaki style way, thinking them as financial statements. And this program, I think, really missed the trick to really educate this poorer family that maybe going out and buying that can of Red Bull was not a good use of that money, that the percentage that you were using up was high. You could go and get a Tesco version of that and maybe a smaller can. It's going to cost you 25p, and that is a better use of those funds. And the difference could be chucked in a little savings pot, which isn't going to make a lot of difference over 2-3 months, but it will over 2-3 years. And that's where that education level comes in. So I'm a big advocate of this, both in education in young children on a financial level, but also in adults as well, so that they actually can then take it upon themselves to re-educate their kids and they can pass on, because I'm a great believer as well in passing on what you learn. And if we as society can actually educate adults better in how to deal with their personal finances, the next generation, their kids are going to benefit from that.
Oh, you're totally speaking my language, Sam. I'm with you 100%. I'm sitting here sort of talking about how important financial literacy is. And I have to remind myself that it's only been literally in the last 4 or 5 years that I have switched my knowledge completely around and understanding that this is the way forward. So I've been guilty of being stuck in the antiquated system also, and having that old model of paying off your mortgage throughout your whole life and then downsizing instead of building assets. And it's totally been a game changer, and it's definitely something that I would recommend people look into more of how to understand their sort of their wealth and building of wealth.
Do you know what? It's very much that "Who wants to be a millionaire" phrase that they used to use, which Chris Tarrant, I think, he said, it's easy, it's only easy when you know the answer. For most people, you say, I was guilty of. Well, I would say you weren't guilty of it because you didn't know, and I didn't know, and lots of other people didn't know. You get the question on "Who wants to be a millionaire" for £250,000. If you don't know the answer, it might be easy for everyone else, but if you don't know the answer, you can't get it right. And that's just what it is. It's just, I think there is a responsibility of all of us to share, what we've learned to make the country as a whole more financially literate.
Absolutely. And there are people out there who assume that everyone knows that this is the way that you should live, but they are in the minority. And also there are a lot of people who don't want to live in this way, that they don't want to be entrepreneurs, they don't want to sort of build assets, and that's fine as well. So it's not for everyone, but it's just knowing that there's a choice and that there are different options out there available.
Completely.
Wow. Well, I feel like we've gone full circle and just covered so many different subjects. And I wanted to talk more about rugby, but didn't get the chance. I have to do that another time because I am the
You can ask me a really
massive.
quick question if you want.
Okay.
I'm always happy for a rugby related question.
What position did you play at university?
I was fly half. Of course I was. I was pulling the strings. I was telling everyone what to do, But
Yeah.
one thing that I loved as a fly half, I was a massive Johnny Wilkinson fan. And he was very good defensively. And I always prided myself on if there was a scrum to the opposition and their number 8 would pick up the ball and think, is that little weedy number 10? I would just give it my all and absolutely hammer. That was my favourite thing to do. Absolute favourite thing to do.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
yeah, love it. I don't play anymore, unfortunately, but I enjoy watching now very much. And one day, this I'm happy to go live and say this because I've said it before. One of my aspirations is actually to own Saracens.
Oh,
So
wow.
it may never happen. It may never happen, and I'm okay with that. If there's a better man for the job, that is. But yeah, one day if the opportunity arose and I did think that was the right man to do it, then I would do it. That's
Okay,
it's on the agenda.
Allianz Park, watch out, here you come.
But it won't be called Allianz Park, but maybe it'll be called Grand Union Park.
Oh, nice one. I like that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds great. It sounds really good. You should
I think-
approach them.
Well, I probably don't have like the £5 million that they need right now.
That's not the attitude. That's not the attitude.
Yeah, find some investors.
Absolutely. Well, my husband's a number 10 and my son's a number 10. So, rugby is a big thing for me. So, well, yeah, fantastic. Oh, well, see you at Twickenham when we're allowed to have big internationals again. And
can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so annoyed that at the time of recording, the football's just about to restart. Yeah. And I'm really disappointed that we still have to wait a little bit more time for the rugby to restart again, but I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether will we have a Six Nations next year? Hopefully.
I hope so. We've got to finish this one first, haven't we?
Yeah. And actually, it's the Lions of 2021, isn't it?
Yep. So God knows what's going to happen there. Yeah, my gut is that I think it will be pushed back a year, but
yeah,
because we've got the Olympics next year as well. Now that's been pushed back, the European Championship, it might just be too much all going on in 1 year in terms of world sport as a whole. The powers that be might actually think we don't want to try and compete with all of that for newspaper back pages. So it might be worth pushing it back a year.
Well, it's certainly an interesting sort of concept of losing a year of sport for sure. It's been. I'm a big sports fan, so I've missed lots of watching sport, and especially local level as well as national and international as well. Well, let's see how well people have been training in the background. They might all come out sort of bionic fit.
I'm really hoping that when it all does sort of start getting back up and running again, that we don't just get a spate of injuries, because people are just not used to that. Mentally they're all going to go. I mean, I've done it. I've had maybe a few weeks off because of a niggling injury. Go back out there like I haven't been off at all, and then got another injury as a result of it. So yeah, hopefully everyone's prepared. I'm sure they are. They're all professionals, aren't they? So
absolutely.
But we'll see. I'm just looking forward to any sport. I'm just looking forward to.
Oh, tiddlywinks.
I'll take it.
No offense made to those who are very keen players.
Yeah.
Right. So Sam Norris, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the Focus on Why podcast, and thank you for sharing your why. How are people able to get in contact with you? Where should they reach out?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, to be honest with you. So if anyone wants to follow me on there, at the Sam Norris, I'm sure there's other Sam Norrises out there, but I'm the Sam Norris. I'm also on YouTube as well. So if you ever want to check out any of my videos, it's Sam Norris, the Property Investors Broker. Facebook, Sam Norris Property. And yeah, if you drop me direct messages on those platforms, if you want to get in touch. And of course, don't forget to go and subscribe to my podcast, the Game of Loans podcast as well, which is available on all good channels and platforms.
It is indeed. And I'll make sure that all of those links go into the show notes. Do you have a final message for the audience today, Sam?
I think it's just, whatever you want to do, you can achieve it. There's nothing that's impossible if you put your mind to it. And if you educate yourself and you surround yourself with the right people, the right supportive people and network, then whatever it is that you want to achieve, you can do it, because I am starting to realize that myself. And trust me, if anyone had told me only a couple of years ago that a mortgage broker would have a YouTube channel with hundreds of followers and subscribers, I would have laughed in their face. So if I can do that, so can you.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star Apple Podcast review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook, and become a member of my inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. I help people to focus on their why with clarity, uniting their passion with their purpose with a plan, to create the life they truly desire. If you would like me to help you focus on your why, then please book a free 20-minute coaching call via calendly.com/Amy Rowlandson. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the Friday Focus weekly newsletter via my website, amyrowlandson.com. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.